Well, greetings, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Topic UFO. Tonight we have Miss Teri Lynge joining us, and she is the Assistant State Director for MUFON in the state of Florida, among many other titles, Section Director, Star Team Member, Secretary, Treasurer, and Field Investigator. She has been experiencing paranormal activity throughout her life, and she is on a quest of exposing the truth about UFOs. So, without further ado, I'd just like to go ahead and bring her on. Teri, are you out there, ma'am?
I am. Hi, Rick.
Hello. How are you tonight, Teri?
Doing great.
Great. Good to hear it. Teri, I don't think I've ever had anyone on the show, even from MUFON, that has had so many titles. Now, do you do all of this at the same time, or are these different titles you've had over the years?
No, I'm basically doing it all at the same time, wearing a lot of hats. But our state has gone through some transformations, and so we just didn't have people to fill all the bills. So I've kind of been helping out. Our state director is Morgan Bell, and I've been working with him now for about a year, and just helping out where I can, actually. I try to travel the state and the state of Florida and let people know about Florida MUFON and MUFON in general, and been pretty successful. I've added 13 new sections to the state, so it's really been wonderful. I'm real happy, very pleased with the results.
That is not an easy task, getting these new chapters up and running. So having done 13, that's quite an accomplishment, I must say.
It's a lot of miles on the vehicle.
I bet, yes. And on the brain as well,
Yep.
So Teri, you have had strange experiences, strange activity since early childhood, and I tend to hear that a lot from people that are into this subject deeply anyway. What can you tell us about, how this all started in your life?
Well, it actually started when I was very young, 5, 6-ish, and I thought it was all natural, actually. I thought everybody experienced these things, and I often through middle school would hear voices talking to me, a voice, not voices, but a voice talking to me. And I thought everybody heard that as well. So for me, it was all quite normal. And when I got a little older into my teens and things were still happening, I started asking people, well, what do you do? Or what do you say? And they're like, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't have any of that happening. And I think a lot of it started out on a more spiritual, perhaps, paranormal wavelength, so to speak. And then as I got older, I was 27 when I had my very first experience with a UFO. Then I started putting pieces together, and I noticed in life you will have paranormal as well as extraterrestrial, and they kind of go hand in hand a bit. However, I have separated them. It's part of the MUFON philosophy that we don't mix the two.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen like that still in my life, but I do definitely at this point separate them both.
So if there is a difference, and I understand you saying that they go hand in hand, because I've heard that stated a lot as well. What if there is a difference, be it minute, What are the differences between, or what you see between paranormal activity and, say, extraterrestrial activity or UFO activity? Is there a point that you can split those, or are they pretty much seen?
Absolutely.
Oh, really? Oh, please tell
Yeah,
us about
absolutely. Well, okay, and I can only speak from my own experiences. I don't know what happens in other people's lives, but in my life, I've had very paranormal things happen. I've had out-of-body experiences that I was unaware that those things even existed when they happened. So I found out after the fact that other people had had some of these experiences. I've had angels appear. I have had visions. I've had night visions, dreams where I've, actually been sleeping and then wake up and have had spiritual things happening in my life. I have had what most people would call demonic experiences, where I have seen some very disturbing things and have had to deal with it, work through the fear and, all that it brought with it. I'm always trying to understand everything, see why, God would allow these things in my life. I am a spiritual person. I do believe we are spiritual beings on a human journey, and I've also had many extraterrestrial experiences. So for me, these things are, like I was saying, commonplace. I've experienced them my whole life, but you can tell if one is actually spiritual, if one is extraterrestrial, or if one is in the demonic range. And through all of that, I've learned quite a bit. And coming into MUFON, I actually was guided into MUFON, and not of my own doing. It was just something that came to me one day while I was sitting on the couch. I heard basically an audible voice say to me, get up and go report what has happened. And I did. I just was okay. And I got up and I went to the computer and I thought, well, how do I do that? And I just put in report a UFO, and MUFON came up. And that was the very first time I had ever had any exposure with MUFON. I didn't know who they were or anything about it. That was 2008. And I reported my first sighting, which I saw in 1979 when I was 27. And after reporting it, I didn't do anything with it at all. I just made the report. James Carrion called me. I spoke with him. Bland Pugh called me, who was also at the time the state director for Florida MUFON. And I didn't even know who those people were when they called. I just wrote their names down. Otherwise, I probably would have never remembered who it was. And after speaking with them, I didn't do anything again until 2010. And in 2010, I was sitting in my living room, and the same voice came to me and said, revisit the sighting that you reported. And I couldn't even really remember the name of MUFON, but I knew it started with an M, and I had created a little folder. I'm kind of a person that is organized that way. When I do something, I start a little folder. I keep track of what I'm doing, Mm-hmm. So I found my folder and typed in MUFON and went to the site again and noticed it said become a field investigator. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. So I paid my money to become a field investigator. They sent me the test. I took the test. I passed the test. And I thought this will be a good way to learn about the extraterrestrials and what they're doing in my life and why they're in my life. I didn't understand that. I had spent basically 38 years studying the scriptures, going to church, being in the worship band, raising my children as unto the Lord and all this. And I understood that part of it, but I didn't understand how the extraterrestrials fit into it all. So I thought, okay, this is my opportunity. I'll get involved with MUFON. I'll figure it out. And I have. I do understand now that, we are chosen. Everybody who has experiences are chosen by the extraterrestrials to be disclosed to personally. That's basically what they're doing. They're disclosing one person at a time, and they're giving us information. And I felt very led to be a part of MUFON, and so I am doing all that I can, and I do believe I'm being led in that vein.
So let me ask you, because historically, at least from what I've seen, there's always been the two major camps when it comes to ufology, that being the scientific viewpoint and the spiritual or religious viewpoint, and then, of course, some little ones mixed in between. But I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody that came from what sounds like a pretty hardcore religious background and then moved into a scientific background, which MUFON is.
Yes.
Has that caused any problems for you?
No.
Or do you just take it as this is, this is just another piece of the puzzle type of thing?
Actually, yes. That's a good way to put it. It is just another piece of the puzzle, and I accept it. And I'm looking for the scientific end of it to make as much sense as the other end of it, and it does. And not every person who sends a report into MUFON is actually reporting a UFO. Sometimes it is something that we can debunk, and we can see it from another perspective, and we can find out that it isn't actually a UFO. There's Chinese lanterns, there's Delta IV launches, there's all kinds of different things that people misconstrue perhaps for UFOs. So it's been interesting to learn all of this, and it really is just my passion to continue to grow in it. I mean, I don't think any of us ever arrive at full knowledge, so it's good to continue to grow and look at this big picture.
Understood. So you talked about your first UFO sighting, I believe, in 1979, was it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Where did that occur? And can you tell us a little bit about what it was you witnessed?
Sure. I was coming home from work. My husband had worked the day shift to watch the children, and I worked a night shift job so that he could watch the children. And I was coming home. It was I had left at 2. I clocked out, and I got into my neighborhood to make a left off of 28th Street in St. Petersburg, where it happened. And I was turning left on 34th Street. And I noticed as I'm coming down 28th to make that left, something was hovered over the railroad tracks. And, I knew it wasn't a train because I could see completely underneath it. And so I thought, okay, it's too high for that to be a train. Trains aren't that high. And I got closer and closer and closer to it, and my car just shut off, and I was less than 200 feet from this. And I didn't believe in UFOs at the time, not at all. And so I just thought it was comic book information that was out there, a total unbeliever. And so seeing it was a bit difficult to wrap my mind around. And yet it was there, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was silver, pewter-ish. It looked like it was just one huge piece. It looked like if you touched it, it might move in, like it was maybe liquid. It seemed kind of biological. There was a blue light going along the side of it, just ever so slowly. And I don't know how long I sat in my car looking at that, but I remember saying to myself, don't get out of the car, don't get out of the car. And the next thing I knew, I was getting out of the car. And I had a little Honda Civic, so I was holding on to the door jamb and looking at it. And I kept thinking to myself, don't get any closer, don't get any closer. And the next thing I know, I was walking kind of around the car, and I was in the front of the car now. And I thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I keep saying, don't do this. What is that? And I actually slapped myself a couple times. I'm like, gosh, am I really seeing this? Is this really happening? And I looked around a few times to see if there was anybody else seeing this with me. And I was alone in the middle of the street, standing outside of my car, and in full amazement at what I was seeing. And I didn't hear a single sound. I didn't see any of the leaves of the trees. There were palm trees. I didn't see any movement in the leaves. I didn't even hear the crickets. I mean, it was so quiet. It was almost like I was in some kind of a force field where I couldn't hear anything outside of my own voice and just viewing this beautiful ship.
What shape were we talking about here?
This was a typical like oval kind of a ship. Had a very small bump on the top of it, not a big one like you see some people draw.
Right.
I didn't notice any windows. I didn't notice anything. It was just like one big piece of this pewter metal, whatever it was. And it just had this light going along the bottom of the ridge of it. And later, I went back and measured how long it was. It was 42 feet. And wide, I'm not sure. Not more than 8 feet wide, or maybe 10 feet, not wider than that. Of course, I couldn't measure that because it wasn't there, so I don't know. But I'm going from, pure memory on that. And as I stood there looking at this, and it was just hovered over the railroad tracks, I noticed over to the right, off of the ship, there was this light coming right at me, and it was a blue-white light. I'd never seen anything like that before, but just poof, it was just there. And so I was looking at the craft hovered, but then I'm looking over here, and there's this light. And in the light, I seem to be going towards that somehow. I don't remember walking over there at all. But I saw a figure in that blue-white light, and it had a very thin body. And the reason I have this little picture right here is because it was white. It was like a white type of a body. The blue light was actually almost coming through it. And the head was huge, and it had a very disturbing large eye that I could see. I could see kind of half of its face, and I remember thinking, oh no, I'm not looking at that. What the heck is that? And it was really quite frightening. It was very ugly.
I can imagine.
I had never seen anything like that. I'm standing alone. I'm only 27, and I was on overwhelm at that time, and I kept thinking to myself, this can't be real. This just can't be real. How could this be? And being a Christian, I kept just saying, Lord, what do you do with that? What is that? And then I don't really remember anything. Since then, I have had some regression, and I have gotten some memories. It's kind of confusing if I tell you what I've learned from regression, because at the time, I had no idea that there was such a thing as missing time. No clue.
Right.
So, so as I was watching it, I remember being back at my car somehow by the door. And as it was like this, with just in a blink, it went up vertically, complete 90 degrees. And it shocked me. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know they could do that. And then I don't know how long it was that way. And then it shot straight up in the sky and went maybe a mile into the sky and came to a dead stop again. And now I'm just standing there looking at it. And I thought, what in the world is that thing doing? And I remember thinking to myself, don't go, don't leave. And all of a sudden from the bottom, the belly of it, out came this ball of fire. It was just a ball of fire, and it was vibrating as it just stood there, and both of them were just like this. And I don't know how long I stood and looked at that. And then all of a sudden they both shot off just incredibly fast towards the Gulf of Mexico, which would have been to the west. So I'm still standing there in the middle of the street looking at it, and all I can think is, why did you leave me? Come back, come back. Don't leave me here. Don't leave me. And then I thought to myself, what are you saying? Why would you say something like that? How stupid is that? You're standing out here in the middle of the street and you're asking this thing not to leave you. Don't leave me. You know, and I thought, okay, that's pretty odd. Well, after this happened, of course, I didn't want to go home and just jump in bed and go to sleep. I was really, you know, wide awake and confused. So I decided I would drive to my mother's house, which was 2 minutes away from my house. And I drove to her house and knocked on the door, and her husband came to the door and said, what are you doing here, Ter? Do you know what time it is? And I said, no. And I said, but I need to talk to my mom. He goes, well, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, 4 o'clock in the morning? I was only standing in the street for 10 minutes. How could it be 4 o'clock in the morning? Well, and I just thought his clock may have stopped or whatever. I didn't even really question it at the time. But I just thought, oh, he's wrong. And so he got my mom up, and my mom came out and was like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I just need to talk to somebody who loves me and knows me and understands that I'm not lying. I've just had this amazing, incredible experience, and I have to tell somebody. So my mom was like, yeah, come on in, put a pot of coffee on, let's talk. And it was that night that I found out that my mother had also experienced UFOs.
Ah.
Yeah. 27 years old, and I never knew that she had seen one.
Well, so, that's probably something that she probably didn't want to talk about. You know, a lot of people don't. So, you know, I find it, I've talked to a lot of different people that have had experiences and abduction phenomena and the whole bit. And I find it very strange that you're really the first person that I've talked to that has had this combination, if you will, of the religious side and of this ET side. I have never talked to anybody that has had that unique combination. And I'm just wondering, has your experiences with UFOs and ETs, has it changed your belief system as a Christian at all? Has it made you question any of the religious philosophies that you lived by up to that point?
At first, it made me question everything. And as I would question, I would feel the answers coming through. It has enlarged my understanding of who God is, and it has deepened my understanding of Him. It has helped me to grasp the fact that most Christians put God in a bubble, and in a Christian bubble, and they judge people outside of that bubble, and or at least that has been my experience. And what I've come to know is that God is so much bigger than that bubble, and He has so much more that He wants to tell us. And I read a part of Scripture that says that Jesus spoke to the disciples and said, there's so much I'd like to tell you, but you can't even understand this, you know, and my kingdom is not of this world. And He made so many statements that verified the fact that He couldn't tell us so many things because we're not even getting the Christianity that he's described to us in the Bible right. A lot of us, I mean,
Right.
we're basically all sinners and we just keep on sinning. We're not getting it. And obviously that's why, we don't get more information. I think it all has to do with heart issues, and it all has to do with understanding and study. But I believe that the aliens exist. I believe he made them. And I believe they're off-world beings. And he knows all about it. It says in the scriptures that he made the stars and he gave them all names. Well, that's amazing all by itself.
Right. I don't see why he couldn't have put some other little creatures here and there, huh? I just
absolutely.
don't. Yeah, I don't see what the big to do is. It seems pretty simple to me.
Exactly.
Well, listen, we're just about getting down on time here, so I wanted to ask you, what is in your future? Are you speaking anywhere? Are you just continuing with your MUFON work right now? What's the future hold for Teri?
Well, I'm working with Paula Harris on her next symposium, which will be in Chicago in May. And I am working with MUFON on a daily basis. I'm actually, 24/7 MUFON actually. And I speak probably 4 times a month at the different chapters within MUFON. And I am the founder of the current Tampa Bay MUFON, and I meet every month there. We have a nice group, a wonderful group of people that meet. And I bring speakers in. I'd love to have you come and talk sometime. That'd be great. And, just constantly out there and educating the public in Florida about MUFON and what we're doing. We have a meetup site, and that's meetup.com/Florida-MUFON. That's a free site that I pay for people to join. And we're just doing all kinds of things. We've got symposiums coming up, so
that's great. No, that's awesome. It's nice that you can devote so much time and are willing to devote so much time to the cause, as they say. Well, I tell you, like I say, you are probably one of the most unique individuals I have spoken to. I've been doing this show now for almost 2 years. And, up till tonight, I've always, and I've said this on the show many times, that I categorize people, when it comes to ufology, into these 2 major groups, scientific and religious. And you are the first person that seems to have brought those borders together. So I congratulate you on that. Very, very interesting. We'll definitely have to talk again and investigate that some more.
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, listen, Teri, it's been wonderful talking with you, and good luck on all of the things you do at MUFON there and the different chapters. And
Thank you.
We will definitely stay in touch. And if I'm ever down that way, I would be glad to stop by one of your meetings and say hello.
Oh, that would be great.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're very welcome.
It's been great talking to you.
You're very welcome, Teri. And keep looking up, as they say, right?
I was just going to say that to you.
I beat you to it.
You did. Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Good night, Teri.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
The answer is to keep